Hey blog friends, it's Rachel in the park. I soft graduated grad school, huzzah. I put off one class, so I have one internship to do until I officially graduate in January, but I did walk the stage and get my little certificate, and I'm done most of my stuff for my MFA. I just have a really cool internship I get to do, which I'm super excited about. But today I wanted to talk to you. Is it worth it getting an MFA? Yes and no. Here's what I think. And I'll just give you a rundown of my experience while it's fresh in my brain post graduation. And hopefully that's helpful to some of you who are maybe thinking about an MFA or maybe thinking about alternatives to an MFA program. So, first of all, the yes is why I'm glad that I did it. What was really great about my program is I did a lot of interdisciplinary stuff that I might not have done as readily. So for example, I took a class on writing a novel in verse, which I'd never done before, and it really upped my poetry game in general, and I just never would have thought to have done that if it hadn't been for my MFA program. I tried out writing children's picture books. I don't really know if I'm great at it. I realized how hard it was. I just learned a lot about it. It was super fun. And just all kinds of stuff like that. You kind of have this whole hive of really cool mentors and people and different genres. At least in my program, we had a lot of different genres that were all together for some classes. And so it just was a really great way to get exposed to so many things and so many different disciplines. Also, just in terms of my productivity, my writing went to the next level. I finished most of my current novel, at least the draft that I'm working on. I'm sure there'll be another draft, but this was really the heavy lifting revision draft. And so I have most of a novel done. The first 130-ish pages are really solid. Huzzah! Before this program, I was very hesitant to do revision, and I was much more of a first drafter, and it really just got me to put the fire under my desk chair to really finish my shit, which was great and what I really wanted. I loved working with the mentors. I had such great mentors from all different kinds of. My track was writing for young people, so I had all just different kinds of mentors who taught me so much. People who I might not have met in my regular writing life. And it opened a lot of doors for me. I've made a lot more connections. I'm part of an alumni association now. I got to meet agents, one of whom I really want to query when I'm at that stage, who's really cool. And then there's just more opportunities coming down the pipeline that I don't want to get into here because they're still in development. But an MFA really does open doors, a lot of cool doors. And so I'm super glad I did it. I think the biggest, and we'll get to the no list now, why I'm not super glad, which is just the number one reason for most people why an MFA program is hard. And again, I did a low residency program. If you can get into a very highly competitive in-person program that you TA a class in lieu of paying tuition, that's a whole different can of worms. Those are very hard to get into. And they come with their own problems. I've met people from those programs who weren't totally pleased, but I think the biggest con for a low res program is the money. The program's really expensive, and I do have to tell you, when my tuition loan payments kicked in, it's not great. It's not great. It's a lot of money, and yeah, it's really effing expensive, and that's I think the biggest drawback. Believe me, a week after graduation when my first loan payment came in, because I went, usually anyway, it's a whole story about why I'm going into repayment a little early. It's because I went part-time this last semester, and so then you get a 6-month grace period, and then you have to start paying, and I was just I don't want to. So that's a little hairy, and I think I'll get back to the money part in a minute, but the other big thing that there was no way for me to prepare for was that my program is falling apart. The actual program where I did my MFA, there's all this university drama. I don't even get into it, but it's really a bummer, and the program really toward the end the programming suffered. And that's not unique to my MFA low residency program, unfortunately. While I was in school, I started in 2023 in the fall. And since I've been there, I've watched other programs, low residency programs in other universities, collapse or get subsumed. So for example, VCFA, Vermont College of Fine Arts, which was one of my top choices. In the end, I didn't pursue them, even though they offered me a generous scholarship, because they're no longer in Vermont. They do their residencies, I think it's now in like California and Colorado. And at the time where I was looking to apply, it was California and Pennsylvania. And I was like, the whole reason why I applied to VCFA was because it was close by. I didn't want to have to travel that far for my program. And I also wanted to build like a local community. So I was like, that doesn't work. And so that program's gotten subsumed into CalArts. Goddard collapsed and ended as a program. And actually my program, Lesley University, ended up absorbing a lot of those students. Fairleigh Dickinson has collapsed, I believe. And so it's just like a really rough time in higher ed in general. And I think creative writing MFA programs seem to be the most precarious for some reason. I don't know why, but at least just like what I've observed in my region. So that's a bummer. I mean, I kind of graduated from my program right as like the shit was really hitting the fan, and we hope that the program will continue, but who knows? There's like a lot of drama and crap that I don't really feel like getting into in this video, but apparently Better Lesley is a lie, and we'll just leave it there. Yeah, really, really sad and disappointing to see the program sort of have all these challenges and drama during my graduation residency. Very sad. And so, yeah, like I think the thing is, do I recommend an MFA program? I think like depending on what your goals are and where you are in your writing career and what you want, like definitely, like for me, I'm really mostly glad I did it. I don't totally love the bill that came with it, but I'm really glad that I did it. But I don't think I would recommend a friend right now who is looking at MFA programs. I don't know if I would totally recommend it. I think it would depend on the program and if they're really strong and not seeing drama and collapse. But I don't know. It seems like the whole higher ed system is really in a pickle right now. And it's really been very sad to watch these really robust, good programs just collapse or have drama or get subsumed or like not be as robust as they once were. So I guess my conclusion is like, you know, when I went into my program, it was right as the pandemic was ending. Things were feeling really hopeful. And so I kind of like got in at a good time. And now 2 years later, like, you know, the world WTF, like, I don't even know. We don't even get into the world right now. The world is worlding. And it's, you know, and higher ed programs are just really affected, it seems to me. Maybe some of you out there in MFA programs can chime in the comments and let me know that your program is going strong, and then we could recommend those programs. But like, I don't personally know a program in my region, low residency MFA program, that I would recommend. And to shell out all of that money in a time that's financially like just like in a big picture, like the economy is weird right now, and higher ed is weird right now, and it's just like I wouldn't really recommend generally doing it, you know, unless like maybe you have thousands of dollars lying around in your board. It's good for you. But I think what I've been sitting with is, you know, if you're wanting to have a more robust writing life, like there are alternatives to an MFA. I am glad I did my MFA program. I got a ton out of it, but there are alternatives. And so like when it was during the pandemic, basically like the day before the pandemic lockdown, I had like applied. I was about to apply to my top choice MFA program, and then like we had lockdown, and I was like, well, let me just wait a minute. And I'm glad I did, because I was looking at a school on the West Coast. I ended up moving to the East Coast, so my life got totally turned upside down and transformed, so I'm glad I waited. But so during that time, I did this really great program called DIY MFA. And it was just a lovely program. It wasn't prohibitively expensive. And it gave me like a good grounding in like similar things you would do in an MFA. Was it as robust as an MFA? Of course not. But it was great. It was a great, like very accessible, both financially and academically. It was a great program. And once you join DIY MFA, you're a member forever and you can always join in classes. It's really great. Highly recommend. The other thing that I did was I joined, once I moved, I joined a local writing group. I took some classes. I ended up doing a year-long class with my friend and colleague, Kate Senecal, and it was on revision, which was my weakest suit in writing, I would say, and now I'm a much stronger reviser. And so doing those two things really prepped me for grad school and gave me a lot of really strong chops. But you know, you could save all that thousands and thousands of dollars on tuition that I am paying. Tears. You could save up all that money and you could put it into doing like intensive workshops. You know, instead of doing a grad school residency, you could go to conferences. You could look at your local MFA program, see who the mentors are, see who you resonate with, and approach them privately and see if they would be your mentor privately, and then probably pay less money and not deal with the middleman. I think having the program, it was just like a really robust and diverse way to kind of like up my writing game to the next level. If you have discipline, you could totally do that through other methods. I also recently discovered, I was submitting work to a literary magazine and they had this thing about pocket MFA, it looked really cool. And, you know, it was a couple $1,000, but still cheaper than an MFA program, and it looked really robust. So there's a lot of MFA alternatives out there, including just taking classes at like good institutions or through private writing instructors that you might jive with. So, you know, I think it's, again, like, it really depends on what you're wanting and what your goals are. I think right now, maybe personally, if I had to do it all over again and I was looking at programs now, I would totally wait. I would wait until things were more stable and the programs I was looking at were more stable. But maybe, you know, there's lots of programs out there and maybe you'll find one that's really good. I think I would just recommend, if you are looking at an MFA program that's low res, is that before you apply, you ask to speak to current students, and current students will spill the tea. If there's smoke, if there's drama, if there's problems, they'll let you know. And if it looks like a strong program and it's robust and it's not having economic hardships or drama with the university, you know, and you have the money, I see no reason why not to do it. But again, it totally depends on your circumstances, your finances, what you're wanting. There's lots of good alternatives out there. So yeah, I guess in conclusion, I'm glad I did my MFA program. I'm really glad that I soft graduated. I was incredibly burnt out by the end. But you know, I have a wonderful discipline now. And throughout my grad school career, I was part of a writing group called Book Buddies with Kate Senecal, whom I did my revision workshop with. And she's a great facilitator and teacher. And so Book Buddies is like this great writing community that like has generative writing hours and critique groups and book club. And so I'm really glad that I did that through my grad school to give me structure, and I'll be continuing with it post grad school to continue my good work, continue working on my novel at a more leisurely pace, much more relaxed, low-key pace. So yeah, I hope that that's helpful. And ultimately, you know, it really depends on what you're looking for, what program you're looking at. I'm just offering my own experience. Take what you like and leave the rest. And, you know, an MFA program is really special and really magical and has challenges, especially right now. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks for tuning in. And let us know how your writing life is going in the comments below.